The Natural Areas Conservancy was founded in 2012. Our mission is to conduct scientific research, to get data-driven information about the health and the threat of forests and wetlands in New York City, and then to make recommendations back to the Parks Department about how to actively manage all of that property. We're a data-driven organization, but we don't always have the capacity to go through it in the ways that we want to. One of the challenges for collecting the data is there are 10,000 acres of forests throughout the parks in New York City. So to have some interns on from the Data for Good program is really exciting for us because we get to explore some questions that we've always had in the back of our minds. We've collected data on the health and the threat of the forests in New York City. But we've always been curious about how that correlates to so many other factors of living in the urban environment.
There's a larger conversation happening now around data science for social good. What I'm hoping to achieve is really think a little bit more about what it means for communities to have access to these parks and how that can affect just their day-to-day lives and what that means for their health, because we don't always think about what is the future impact for like children growing up in these areas and how will that affect them 20, 30 years down the line. For this project, a lot of what I've been using is geographic information software. That has helped me a lot in mapping out where the parks are and then also mapping out different health scores and seeing if there's any specific spatial distribution of those scores and then being able to then compare it. I'm looking at different census tracts in New York City and seeing which ones are furthest away, which ones are closest. So using a lot of network analysis and then census data. How are we defining access? And I've been thinking about that because does that mean a 10-minute walk or 15-minute walk, you know? And then I think that's also been complicated as I move on to different types of transportation. So there are some bikers who would bike, you know, anywhere, even if there's a lot of traffic. But for some people, they'll only ride if there's a protected bike lane and it's not right next to traffic. And then with public transportation, is it reasonable for someone to be able to take a half-hour ride to get to a park with a natural area?
How do we define accessibility in public transportation?
Yeah. Hopefully that will also allow us some insight into where perhaps there needs to be more bike lanes or perhaps new subway lines created. I don't know how easy that would go, but you know, it's a hope.
Inwood Hill Park is a real gem in the northern part of Manhattan, and it's one of the oldest forests in New York City. It's a little over 120 acres of forest that's remained somewhat untouched throughout the years.
Inwood's not the wealthiest community, it's one of the poorest in the city. We've worked with Natural Areas Conservancy on a lot of their work in the park to recover the trails, to restore the trails, to mark the trails. I hope that people can realize there are resources in New York from a health perspective, from an environmental perspective. My dream is that the park is here for next generations. This is everybody's backyard.
It's actually been a little bit surprising because although New York City is pretty spatially segregated, because a lot of the bigger parks are on the outer edges of the boroughs, it's really people in the central areas that are furthest away, and that's not always just these underserved communities. I'm hoping then to now also look at, are there different community health data for those, and then how could that then better inform other policies?
We have 350 miles of official and unofficial trails, and some of the questions that we're exploring in the Immersion project are going to help us think about how we can start to open up those trails in natural areas to more of the communities in New York City in more accessible ways. And this information from the project is going to help us with that.